Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, regarding where you are. I hope you're doing okay. I'm very happy to see you today, guys. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have a nice conversation with our guest. So, guys, please take the time to sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and to share this video, of course. And please, in the comment section, in the chat room, let me know where do you come from? Where do you watch this live show? Please let me know. Don't hesitate. All right. I give you a moment to sit back. Here we are. So what we got? Ebony. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Let me know if you have any issues. Can you hear me loud and clear? Can you hear my? Is the sound okay? Is the picture okay? Let me know, guys. I will give you a moment to sit, to have a drink, to chill. And like I said, again, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and to share this live. It's been a while. I was away, but now I'm back. And I'm glad to be here, guys. Junior, bonjour, hello. Bienvenue. Par contre, attention Junior, le live sera en anglais. Our guests speak English, so the show will be in English. So I hope it's okay for you. Nikki Otep, always a pleasure to see you, Nikki. Welcome. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, people. I hope you're doing okay, and let's begin our show.
Let's get ready to rumble!
All right, guys. This is a story of Son of Africa. My guest is born and raised in Africa, and one day he decided to leave Africa to Europe. So he had experience living in Europe. He was there doing his own thing, and then decided to go back to Africa. So I'm very curious, interesting, because he have both experience living in Europe, back in Africa. So he's going to share his story. This is story. All right, people, let's start it right now. Further ado, let's get Theo. Welcome, my dear friend. How are you?
I'm good, Shango. How are you doing?
I'm very fine. Thank you very much. Good to be here. I'm glad you're here. So, without further ado, let's start right away. So, my dear friend, can you, for those who don't know you, can you introduce yourself in a few words? Go ahead.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing fine. My name is Theo. I go by the stage name, the YouTube name Theo is back. I am Rwandan who moved to Europe, now moved back to Rwanda to start my own business, and that's where I am right now.
Okay. Please, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe this video, but also go and visit the YouTube channel. Theo is back in one word. It's on the screen right now, scrolling. So do not hesitate to visit his YouTube channel. And by the way, guys, Do not hesitate to ask questions to our guests during the show. And at the second part of the show, we will turn on your camera and we'll have a conversation. And please, please, please bear with me. My English sucks. I know. I'm still working on it, but I'm doing my
No,
best.
it's all right, man. It's all right. You're doing good. You're doing good.
Okay, thank you. You have right now a first comment from Ebony who tells you, "Hi, Theo is back. One of my favorite YouTubers." You see, oh, people like you already, and I'm kind of jealous. I'm already jealous. What? What? And what about? Okay, I understand why. I need to put more content in English, but that will come soon. Don't worry. All right. So Theo, let's start right away. So your story is you were born and raised in Rwanda, right? So you're Rwandan. And
Yes, that's true.
shout out to all the Rwandans in the house. And by the way, my parents live in Rwanda, in Kigali. So, mom, dad, I salute you. So, um, before we go into deep, can you tell us what was? So you were born and raised in Rwanda. So what was life in Africa back in the days? Because I'm quite sure you heard a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of stereotype and cliche about Africans. So based on your personal experience, what was it to be living in Africa as a Rwandan? How was it?
Yeah, so for me, honestly, it was kind of awesome because I was living here as a child. I I was born in Rwanda, and all my siblings were so we're just I have three siblings. We're all guys, so we're just a bunch of guys playing around, playing outdoors. Played a lot of like soccer. We played a lot of sports outdoors on bare feet. So let's just say that, yeah, honestly, I didn't know how good I had it because that was just was going good. I didn't know much about the world. I didn't care that much about the world, and it was just fine. It was honestly to me, I liked it a lot. I liked it, every part of it, and I was just like a kid in a candy shop, basically.
Okay. So we are totally far from the typical cliche we hear about African people living in Africa, we're getting into that in a moment. So you said your life was quite good. You had good memories, good souvenir. I mean, just like any kind of child. And one day, you and your family, I guess, you decided, guys, to leave the country. Can you explain us why?
Yes, as everybody knows, in 1994 there was a genocide that happened here in Rwanda, and there was a lot of turmoil, unrest. So, like many Rwandans, my parents sought for safety, and we moved around to a bunch of other African countries first. So yeah, that's how we eventually ended up a few years later in Europe.
Mhm. I understand that the situation was not the best. We're going to put it that way, but I don't want to go into detail because I don't want to open any kind of wounds. So we won't go into much detail. So I understand you finally decided with your family to move due to the circumstances, and when you arrive in Europe, so you arrive at
Mhm.
the airport, and airports are look-alike. So there is no an airport is an airport, and now you left the airport and you arrive where? What was it in Europe?
I arrived in the Netherlands, and I remember it was January. It was cold, so it was like a totally like different world, I would say.
In the Netherlands.
Yes.
Oh, goedemiddag.
Goedemiddag. You speak Dutch.
Alles goed?
Very nice.
Okay, straight up, I hate that language.
Really, but
Oh
you still
yeah,
speak it though.
just a little bit because okay, I got to tell you, I lived in the Netherlands too.
Oh, for how
What a
long?
what a coincidence, huh? In Rotterdam.
Rotterdam, yes, the Black City.
Yep. So okay, but back to you. So you arrive at what was it, Rotterdam or Amsterdam? What was the city?
Um, so no, we arrived in Amsterdam, the main airport.
Okay,
Yeah, that's where we arrived. But we lived like in a city right outside of Amsterdam for a few months. But
okay,
right after we kind of moved to Amsterdam, and I've actually always lived in Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. Okay, okay. So you arrived in this new country, this new city, Amsterdam. What was your first reaction when you get out of the plane? You get out of the at the airport. You see the city around you. What was your first reaction? and your first feeling.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, honestly, I was still a kind of like a small kid, so I don't remember much from that first period of, like, let's say, landing and you smell the fresh air, because we were being driven around in buses, in places. You went to places, you were tired, and then my parents knew more of what was going on than I, to be honest. So that first few years, the first year actually that we arrived, it was kind of like getting situated. We went into this, I don't know how to call it. It's There's like a home that they have for refugees when you come, when they are processing your documents. So I remember a lot of that place in the inside, because I was just roaming around like a kid, playing stuff. And I remember meeting a lot of foreigners as well. I remember I met people from Iraq. I met people from other African countries. I don't remember which country that was. And so it was just all about, like, kind of like people and playing around. And we went to some kind of like school thing. But memories are kind of foggy, to be honest, of that first year or so when we just arrived.
And when you grew old, a little bit older, because I understand probably you were too young to remember, to have clear memories about this, the way you moved from Africa to Europe. But after a
Mhm.
few years, how did you feel when you knew, okay, this is the place we have to stay and live in? So what was your reaction? Did you say, oh, god damn, I want to get out of here? Or, well, it is what it is. What was your reaction when you grew up a little bit older and you realized that you have to stay here over there for a certain time?
Well, yeah, it's like it's they. I didn't honestly, I did not have much of an opinion about it, because you're a kid, you're following what your parents are putting in front of you.
Mhm.
And by that time, you're just uh, taking the situation as it is. Like I said before, we came to the Netherlands. We moved to a few other countries, and so I was used to this change of environment that was going on. I was honestly actually just doing my thing in the back of my mind, thinking, we're probably gonna move somewhere else again. So
Oh, hmm.
yeah, just do your thing right now, because you never know. Your parents might come and say, like, "Hey, you're going to Shanghai or something." I did not know back then, so I was not really concerned about about tomorrow or about the rest of my life, how it will look like. So honestly, honestly, like, if I think about it, I think I was just like a kid who's doing what was what was in front of him.
So, okay, and I get this. Now, from a kid, you become a teenager, and no, we know teenagers. We there is some change in our attitude, we grow up, we understand the world a little bit better. We become more mature, and then you start to have friends. How was it to, first of all, you didn't speak any Dutch when you arrived. You
No.
never spoke any Dutch. I guess any English, any French. So how was it to communicate in a foreign country? You're a young man, and you don't even speak the language. So how did you manage to, before you start to learn the language?
Mm. Yeah, so before I came, I could speak a little bit of English, because one of the other countries I lived in was Zambia, and that's where the school there, we went to school for a short bit, and they were taught English. And as a kid, I was just able to pick up those languages a bit faster than I would say right now.
Hmm?
But so that's how I picked up Dutch as well, just with my brothers, just playing around, just because we were immersed into the school system, met a lot of Dutch speaking people. So it was just by playfulness that we got around, and we got to school and started learning the language bit by bit. So the thing is, school really helped a lot, because you know um, yeah, there are some things are tough, but if you can just go past the language barrier and you can understand the subjects, then it was quite okay. So that's how I was kind of going around. I was like I said, a playful kid. I like sports. I was like making friends at school as well, and one of them was a Dutch guy. And I don't know. I mean, I'm always a guy who likes new adventures, so I just jumped into it like that.
Okay. We have a question from Ebony Repat right here, and she asked, um, was there a huge community of Rwandans that was relocated to Amsterdam because of the genocide? Do you have any idea?
Yes, I do. The answer is actually quite no. The majority of the Rwandan community that basically fled the country went to Belgium because Rwandan and Belgium have like a connection going on. So not so much to Netherlands or to Amsterdam. And I know this because my parents and together with my other friends' parents, when they arrived there, they started like a group of Rwandans, because we were like kind of like scattered away. So they tried to kind of bring all the Rwandans together so that we can, because we are all facing the same challenges. We're all facing that we left a country that we loved. We're all facing that we had trouble with the language, and they were all facing, all these kind of integration issues. But that group was also fairly small, so there were not a lot of Rwandans. Those that were there, they were kind of like scattered all over the country.
Just a quick intermission. I have Eve telling me in French. Do you speak any French, by the way?
No, my French is super bad.
That's fine. That's fine. You have Eve asking me, did I think about French speakers? I'm going to speak in French just for Eve for 1 minute.
No problem. Yeah.
Ok. Yves, je te comprends, mais je l'ai déjà dit dans ma chaîne, je ferai des shows en anglais. Parce que je sais qu'il y a une moitié de la communauté africaine qui parle anglais. Donc, j'aurai des shows qui seront exclusivement en anglais. Et je tente de faire du moitié-moitié parce que je veux toucher toutes les communautés. J'aurais même fait des lives en portugais, mais je ne parle pas la langue, pour toucher les Brésiliens, les gens du Mozambique, de l'Angola, etc. Donc, il y aura, a fortiori, j'espère, des moitié français, moitié anglais. Pour l'instant, le show est en anglais. Et to answer, now back in English, and to answer Nikki, who said, when with the live in our language subtitle, well, Nikki, it's up to you. If you volunteer to help me to provide subtitle, I'm open. I'm really, really open, but I do not speak any Kikongo or Swahili. I speak Creole, but from Guadeloupe. It's not the same from Martinique or Haiti or even from La Réunion. It's different. I don't speak any Wolof. So if you know anyone who volunteered to help me to create the subtitles, you guys are more than welcome. All right. Let's wrap it up. And please, guys, don't hesitate to ask any question to our guests during the live show. There is no problem, and I will show them. So back to our show, my dear friend. So if I understand correctly, since you were a playful guy, so that was kind of easy for you to adapt yourself in this new environment besides the language.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. And when you became, like I said, a teenager, so you start to learn the language, and finally, what was it like to living in this country? You say, okay, I'm fine. I go with the flow because it is what it is. Or was it a bit difficult? Did you face any issue? What was it like?
Yeah. So yeah, my experience was there were some things off, but I did not know that they were off or bad because back then I did not have any comparison. And like I said, there was not a lot of big community of other Rwandans or black people for that matter. So it was as if the things I was experiencing, I just took them to be normal because I did not have any frame of references. So, but yeah, what was a bit off, it was indeed that basically the higher education I was getting, and the less black people I would see around me, So even all the way up to
wait. I really need to hear that again because I guess we are touching a very explicit point. Say that again.
Yeah, one of the things that was like a bit off for me was that the higher I was climbing up, in this case, educational wise, the less black people I was seeing around me. And I never thought or anything of it at that moment. It was just like a weird, funny thing to tell, at parties. But later on, I realized that was something a bit off about that. And also, of course, you had like the Dutch culture is totally different from any culture, from any black culture, I would say. So there was a lot of like integration or things that Dutch people did that I did not have any affiliation with. Like I did not per se like. I did not like their type of music, their type of food, or things like that. But I thought, well, it's normal. They are white, and took it. I just took it like that. But I did not like say that I hate it or I love it. It's just like it's not my taste. So you kind of like develop your own world in where you live in, and you have like this professional academy or slash professional life where you meet a lot of white people, you behave a certain way, but then you create your own black circle of friends where you do listen to the music you like, you do go to the parties that you like, and eat the food that you like. So that's basically how my teenagers was. It's just I had like compartmentalized my life.
That's funny because I'm afraid that's what a lot of African people experienced abroad, and they have to create their own world because the world is so different. You don't feel, it's not a question of love or hate, but you don't feel really attached to that kind of culture because it doesn't speak to you. So you tend to
Hmm.
create your personal world and meet people who look like you, and
Yeah.
I understand that. But I want, I'd like to ask you this question regarding the education you just mentioned. Now that you have probably more experience and feedback, how would you explain that? The more educated you are, the less black people you saw. What would be your personal analysis about this?
Well, yeah, it's quite in depth. I would say,
Hmm.
because I lived there for a long time and I've been into the system. So there are many factors. But to kind of like summarize it, it has to do with from all the way from, of course, from colonialism. Because the Netherlands was a country, for example, that colonized a few countries around the world, or at least helped with it. So some of these countries where the Netherlands went, some of those people came back to the Netherlands, in work and whatever. But any foreigner basically who came to the Netherlands was always a few steps behind. So let's just say in my example, I had smart parents. My father was a doctor, my mom was like studying to be a lawyer before we left the country.
Hmm.
But when they came here, for example, instead of being on top of the system, giving me the right tools to succeed in university, they were busy learning the language first of all, because they need to converse in the world. They were busy finding accommodation, money, and things like that. So when they come, and I'm talking about my situation, it is as if they went like a few steps lower in their societal status or level. So therefore they were like busy surviving more than like teaching their children to thrive.
I see.
So even though I must say in our case, education was really on top of it,
Hmm.
but many subjects that I was learning at school, I could not come and talk to my father with it. For example,
Hmm.
it's because there was just like a difference. My father was busy, feeding us, clothing us. My mother the same. So you kind of like left a bit on your own, and that's just us being lucky that our family was together, because the many families were separated during this whole thing, the movement. So what you get is that the in my generation, at least I could see that even though we were bright children, our heritage, our parents, because they had to start from scratch, where we are kind of like behind in the system. They were not aware of the grants that someone can get, for example, if they apply for university. They didn't My parents were not into the high ranking social classes of the Dutch society, where I could get like an internship at a high ranking firm or whatever. So you get that these bright foreigners are not on the same level as the local Dutch people. And yeah, just from the start, and that's talking about the Rwandan generation, people who just came there. There are, of course, other people, other foreigners who've been living here for many years, and where this situation kind of perpetuates itself, so that the parents don't help their children don't help their children. So yeah, it's a kind of like an unfair balance that's there. The playing field is not leveled. Like, for example, when I went to university, I was paying all my stuff by myself, whereas some kids came in, parents had bought an apartment for them, and they were probably giving them some allowances. So you can imagine it's different studying when you don't have to worry about rent. When you know that, hey, if I do good or bad, at least I have a house that's been bought. Or my parents who always take care of me. So yeah, it's a bit different. I would say it's actually it's a lot different.
What you just said is very interesting because your testimony is very interesting because being a foreigner is not an easy task or easy job, if I may say so. Because unfortunately, I'm very happy you said what you said, and anyway, it's your personal experience. Because I'm afraid too much of our brothers and sisters in the continent think just because you move to Europe or to the United States of North America or wherever, life is
Mm-hmm.
so much better, and you are the living proof that it is not what it seems to be. That you have an unfair, it's unfair balance because you have more handicap than others. You have to fight probably more to reach the same level. You, just like you said, your parents, they had to find a way to survive, so they may not be available to give you all the structure you're supposed to have. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
important to say what you just say, and I hope, guys, brothers and sisters, if you're still living in the continent, you need to know, you need to hear it. Don't think because you moved to Europe, it's the Holy Grail. That's my point. And you have right now another comment from Ebony Ripat. Thank you, Ebony, who said, yes, there is always an issue of access to the same opportunity. We often have to learn as we climb. Yes, 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 exactly. Wow, that's very interesting. So that may explain why you. Okay, now that you explained the issues, the difficulties that you had to face, um, did you could you meet other Rwandans or other foreigners or even other Africans, because we're talking about Africa right now, Africans who share the more or less the same experience and create some kind of a network to help each other to how can I say that, to pass those issues.
Yes and no. Yeah, so first, yes, it was easy to meet some of these Africans, particularly the Rwandans, because hey, when you are Rwandan, you meet a fellow Rwandan, you just talk in your language, you make the same jokes, you have the same cultural background. So it was easy to connect and and build on that. And in my case, I came there as I was a child, I was under 18. So for me, it was all fun and games, because I would meet others, we would go dancing and partying, you know, mostly we were linked through our parents. So when there was like a New Year's Eve or something, we're gonna celebrate together. So it was fun to connect and link up, and that's where I've gotten most of my actually childhood friends that are still called friends today. From that time. But when it comes to those overcoming those hurdles that you just talked about through
Yep.
building that the connection, it was not possible because we were all still below the ladder. I would say we were all still facing the same issues. Like I said, so the issues that I was telling you, that my parents were not in the right position to support me fully because they were busy surviving. Well, the same thing that was happening to my friend here or to my cousin here. They were all, I'm talking about Rwandans. They're all like kind of like first generation Rwandans who just came here in their late 40s, 50s with children and with family back in Africa. With also kind of like was looking up to them. So they had like a lot on their plates, and the children themselves, my generation, well, we were also just growing up. We were kids. Like I did not know that, hey, I'm gonna meet with this guy and this is gonna be potential business partner. No, I just wanna meet him because we can go out together. Or I'll go hook up with this girlfriend because she looks nice and we may wanna get her number or something. So we, the youth, were not busy networking for business purposes. It was more for fun. And the older people were, all of them, no exception, honestly, no one had it better than anyone else. We all had our own fair issues of, you understand, this a genocide also just happened. So this was like some real trauma also that was being processed by this older generation. But there was some real racism and discrimination that happened. Like I said, in my case, my parents did not share with us all the bad things that we had to encounter to survive. So we were just blessed as kids to be kind of innocent and come home and there was always food, and we were always able to go to school and we were always able to get clothing. But there were other people who did not have it as good. Like I said, we were family that were at least together. There were families who were torn apart. There were families who were still dealing with trauma from there. And there were some families who were this thing. We were just like we were there for 5 years, and then a new family would come. and we're like reliving the whole thing all over again. They come, they have to adjust, they have to find other runners, they have to learn the system. So it was really hard to help. It's hard to help someone when you yourself are not
True.
stable, basically. So
Fair enough.
that's
Fair enough.
how.
We'll be back. We'll have a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the African Chronicle Live. My name is Shango, and with our guest Theo is back from Rwanda, and we were talking about his personal experience living in Europe, and now that he's back in Rwanda. So, you told me something very interesting because you explained how hard it is to climb the hierarchy, if I might say so, especially when you're a foreigner. You try to survive, you try to give the most guidance possible as a parent. It turns out, even if we have both different lives, different
Mhm.
experience, but some I can relate because it was exactly the same. Even if I was born in Europe, the difference between you and I, you were not born in Europe, I was,
Mhm.
and yet
Mm.
I felt exactly the same. And you say something very interesting because you said your parents somehow has to be the umbrella to protect you from the as much as possible from the discrimination, the racism, and all that. It turns out my parents did the same, and I'm quite sure a lot of parents around the world, around Africa, who moved to the West did exactly the same. You see, so it doesn't matter, people, if you were born and raised in Africa or in Europe, just like me, we are facing the same issues. That's very interesting. So let me see if I see another comment. Uh, I'm not sure to understand your question, my dear Nikki. Is the French-speaking area different from English-speaking area? Well, I can tell you in the Netherlands, nobody speaks French unless they learn it in school. You may refer to Belgium. Yes, I guess I may say 60% of Belgium speak Dutch and 40% more or less speak French and a little bit speak German. So I'm not sure about your question, Nikki. Could you be a little bit more specific? So while Nikki is getting more specific, let's continue our conversation with you, my dear Theo. So now you became all your childhood in the Netherlands, your country. It was kind of easy for you because you are well. You're an easygoing guy. I mean, you talk to people very easily. You're a friendly guy, so that helps. Plus, your parents cover you as much as they could to protect you from different uh, experience of racism or discrimination. Good. But now, sooner or later, you're going to have to face it. This discrimination and this racism. Did you face them first? And how did you manage to get over it? If getting over it is possible, how did you manage that? What was you, before we go further, first, my question is, what was your first encounter regarding discrimination and or racism?
Um. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, for me, it's always a bit funny this story because I've had encounters, but I've only kind of really realized them later on in life because I'm a person who's really like I'm a kind of like an optimist person, and whenever I'm like challenged, I always take the challenge as like a challenge, like a game which I want to win. So every time when things were like stacked against me, I always felt like, okay, now let me see how I can fight through this, and I can make it. Um, but yeah, like later on, I realized that that was not normal. I realized that there was some lot of like covert racism that was happening. It was never overt. It was like kind of hidden. But so the first one I can really, really remember, again, only came to this conclusion many years later, was so when I just came to the Netherlands, right? I was going to school like any other kid, and I always said that I wanted to be a doctor ever since I was a kid. And I don't know, maybe because my father was a doctor, but it was just something that I like to say, and I said a lot. But one of my primary school teachers, because I came into the last year of primary school teacher, when you finish primary school, you get two kinds of grades. You get one grade from your test that you're doing, and you get one grade from your basically what the teacher advises you. So I got a grade which was kind of like questionable between like high and low. I would say it was like in the middle. I was kind of like I can go both. I can go up, I can go down, but it was more on the downside. Let's say it's as if you score out of 100, you score like 40%. So a bit on the low side. But my teacher, and then my teacher said like, you see, Theo is more meant to do like the easy job, like crafting, all that. And then my mom came to me, but then he says, but no, but he wants to be a doctor. And then the teacher was like no, 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 he cannot be a doctor. He, like his test score. My advice is that he best do this more. I'd call it like crafty work, practical work. Um, so so basically, I was kind of like being shunned out of university because the teacher deemed that I was not of value to go to university, and my grades did not support that very highly. So, but my mom, luckily, at that point, had met one Dutch lady who knew something about the educational system, and this school's test that everyone has to take. Apparently, you can do a retake. You see, this was one of those advantages that you only know when you are embedded into the system. None of my foreign friends knew this, but so this luckily the Dutch woman knew about this. And like, oh, he didn't score, but he can retake it. And I'm like, really? How? We don't know. So she kind of helped my mom to find the way, and then I was able to find a possibility to retake the score. And basically, if I scored high enough in that score, I'll be allowed to university. And I scored good enough to go to university, to go to this, at least this better high school. And from there on, of course, because I went to this higher high school, I was able to do well and later on go to university. But later on, I really realized that this is something that many of the white people had back then, that because when you're African, they just deemed you not to be very smart. And because my grades were also kind of like questionable, but like I said, I was just there for the last year or so. So it's also a question whether my intelligence was really tested, or it was, because I had to adjust to the system. But it was just one of those things that came back then, and to me, I took it as a challenge that I just need to do a retake and to score better. But later on, I realized, also hearing from other black people, that yeah, when you're black and you score somewhere in the middle, you automatically like put down. Or some people, they even score high. These are stories I've heard, and they challenge them like, did he not cheat? Was it really his score? So it was one of the first things that, for me at least, when I realized, oh my god, if the woman, if my mom had not met that Dutch woman, my whole life trajectory right now would have been totally different, because I would have started even lower at the bottom, and I don't know if I would have had enough, you know, courage or help to climb up the ladder, basically.
Thank you for the testimony. And I now, uh, brothers and sisters, those who are still in Africa, I hope you heard that and you heard that clear. Now, my turn to tell you a story. That's the story of a man 60 years ago, a little bit more, who's been told exactly the same thing. This man was brilliant at school, very good, and he wanted to be, I think, a lawyer. Or, I mean, something very high rank job. And he's been told, but a lawyer, but you black. I mean, you people, you can use your hands so quite well. So why don't you be a plumber or carpenter? That would be better for you. And that person was Malcolm X.
Mm.
See, that was at least 6 decades ago, probably more. 6 decades later, we have this experience again with Theo, and I'm quite sure Theo is not the only one because it happened to me too. And I'm quite sure it happened to a lot of black people living in the West being told the goddamn same thing. I'm sorry, excuse my French, but this story keeps repeating itself again and again and again. So it has to be told and it has to be known. And we have another comment from Ebony who said, yes, here in the United States, a lot of these tests are culturally discriminatory. Even as a foreigner living in the state, I had to take tutoring classes to learn their system to succeed. Oh, it tells me there is another. If you come to this channel, you know me already. If you don't know me, I'm going to talk about books all the time. Why? Because a lot of knowledge are into books. So I advise you in that question regarding that question of education. Let me suggest you a book called "The Miseducation of the Negro." Let me write it down. Book, "The Miseducation of the Negro." I strongly advise you guys to read that book. You will understand. This is not an accident. What happened to Theo was not an accident. What happened to me, what happened to Malcolm X, and a lot of people, just like Ebony said, this is not accident. This is not coincidence. I'm not going to say more, but I advise you to read that book, The Miseducation of the Negro. Speaking of books, books that helped me to prepare this interview. We just saw with our friend Theo right now a couple of cliches that we need to clear out. But I advise you to read that book, Brainwashed, by Tom Burrell. And the book
Mm.
explains the myths and all the cliche about black people around the world, Africa, the United States. Very interesting. So the first step is to uh, uh, manipulate your brain to make you believe that black people this, black people that, and explain how he does it. So I strongly advise you to read this book, Brainwash, because a lot of people, black people living outside of Africa, think, "Will Africa this, Africa that, African this, African that." Everything is explained. I put the link in the description of this live. So I really strongly advise you guys read this book. That's the first step. The second step is to make sure Africa stay underdeveloped. And there is this man, a very interesting man. His name is Walter Rodney. He was a historian, and he wrote this book, "How Europe Underdeveloped Africa." Excellent book that I really, really, guys, advise you to read. Now, you are the first step, how to manipulate our minds. The second step, how to steal from our lands. But there are solutions. And this book, I already talked about it many times. This one, The Blueprint for Black Power by Amos and Wilson. How to build economic, political, social power between African people and the diaspora. Because the diaspora without Africa, it won't work. Africa without the diaspora won't work. Really interesting book. It tells you in this book literally the recipe how to rebuild our economic power between African people and the diaspora. Really. And I put all the links in the description below. We will talk about it in a moment later. So let's continue. So due to your temper, I had the feeling that facing racism discrimination was kind of easy because you say, okay, you took it as a challenge, more than a challenge. Am I correct?
Yes, that's yeah.
Okay. And did you not confront, but did you share your personal experience to other Africans, immigrants like you, and what was their reaction?
No, that's a good question actually. No, the answer is actually no. I every time when I was faced with this kind of like challenge, whether like I said in this time of school or when you apply for a job and then you never hear from them, for example, you just get not picked, things like that. Like it always felt as if it was like a personal failure. It always felt as if it was just something that was happening to me. So I never really brought it out in many conversations. And anytime when someone else would talk about it, I would say like, okay, yes, I hear you, and I would sympathize with it. But somehow I always felt like I can do better. I should do better. I should, like, try this, try that. So I'm really want to really fight through things. Like, if I don't get hired one place, I'll make sure to write a better resume. If I'm not making enough money in the same company, I will make sure to say something or find another job or something like that. It was just something that I never shared, and it's something that only later on in life, when I realized, like, wait a second, this thing is systematic. So basically, I found myself that, hey, even though I can survive with it, and like I said, I had three other brothers, so I never had like a real strong responsibility that I had to take care of someone, because we're all guys, we're all capable of taking care of ourselves. But later on in life, I realized, like, wait a second, if I had, let's say, a sister or something, and she had to go through this, I'm sure she would not fight like I would fight, you know. Or if my mother had to go through this, she would not fight the way I would fight. And then I started realizing, like, even though, this thing I see as a challenge, as a personal challenge, and I can go through it, it's not right, because it's something that's, yeah, if any other black person has to deal with it, and they don't have the same character as I am, and I realize not everyone is like me, uh, then it just felt really wrong. So that's when things kind of started to change. But before that, I always took it kind of like personal.
And uh, how did because okay, you and your siblings are different, your parents, how did you manage facing racism or discrimination or facing this new life? What was the interaction that you have with your siblings and your parents? Did you talk about it frequently or never? Did it bother you? I mean, what was the reaction of your brothers, your parents? What was the state of mind within the family in that situation?
Yeah, so, well, I think it started from home. Like I said, my parents faced a lot of those issues more than I did, but somehow, some way, I would say, particularly my father, never really shared all those kind of stuff. You can imagine me. I came as a kid, and I was bouncing around, party schedules from my parents, and I was not challenged by the word of my father, who came in as a full as grown adult, who had to look for a job from day one without speaking the language properly. And he's the one who dealt with the most of those issues face to face. But we never sat on the table and talked about how badly he was discriminated, or how, you know though those are things that later on in life I realized, yeah, he probably had a lot of those things. There were probably tons of those things that he had to deal with just to survive. But those things were never shared to me, so I never I never assumed that it was like a big, systematic issue. And with my siblings also, neither really. Like, as you know, most guys, we don't come home and talk about how our day went, and talk about how our feelings got hurt at the job because we did not get the promotion we wanted. So it was basically a non-conversation for many years of my life, and including the family as well.
I got a message for your parents and siblings.
Yeah.
Shout out to your parents because they did a hell of a job. I know it's not really easy to raise children, especially out of Africa, living in a foreign country. You don't even speak the language. You have to start from scratch. Remind me the song
Yeah.
of Drake, starting from the bottom. Now we're here. So shout out to your parents. They really deserve this round of applause. And shout out to your brothers because I know it's not really easy to live in a foreign country, especially in that kind of circumstances. So you had to be safe. Before we go further, I'd like to show you guys something real quick because it had to be seen. It's our dear friends right here. I invite you to. There it is. This is Theo is back. His YouTube channel. Please, guys. Hold on. Yeah, take a minute to visit his channel. Very interesting. It tells you about his personal experience back in Rwanda, building his business, building his life, his daily life in Rwanda, what it is to be in Rwanda, living in Rwanda. It's really, really interesting. I found out about Theo some times ago. For once, YouTube algorithm does a good job for once, so I could follow him. It's very interesting. So, guys, I advise you to visit his channel. Very interesting. Very interesting. So visit his channel. Theo is back in one word. You could see the link in the in the description of this video too. So, and I will talk about it a little bit more later. So now you became a grown man, an adult. You're on your own. You decided to leave the family cocoon and live your own life still in the Netherlands. So how is it now? Now that you're entered adulthood and you have to face well the world by yourself. Could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes, yes. So I'm, like I said, I'm a fairly independent person, and like I said, I'm a kind of a fighter. So I basically I moved out at a fairly young age. I think I was like 18 or 19. In the Netherlands, there's this system where you kind of go live by yourself when you go study university. So it was the first time I was really like by myself, and honestly, I kind of liked it. I liked the freedom, and I was working from a young age, so I had my own money, and then there was the kind of like a government grant that you could get. And like I said, it was nice. And here, like I said, I went to university, so I realized now my circle of colleagues of all my classmates, they became even whiter. They were, yeah. So this war difference, yeah, kept on existing. I was just now working more, and also I realized something in school. I got like a better paying job, and this better paying job also, well, more white people than the one before. But I would say, yeah, so those beginning years from, let's say, in 18, since I went to live with myself, to 23, so the first 5 years of adulthood, it was actually quite a lot of fun because I was working, I was studying, I was partying, I was trying out new stuff. Even though I'm a young adult, I still kind of like shouted in a way because I was just a student. I could get by with little money, and when you meet someone and they want to gauge what kind of person are you, when you
Yeah.
tell them you're a student, you kind of like, okay, it's okay. I didn't have to come out and tell them I'm a lawyer or I'm a carpenter. I was just like, hey, I'm a student. So it was quite okay, I would say. The first 5 years or so, it was cruising, just working, going through life, but mostly studying, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. And while you were growing up abroad, living your life, and I understand that your life was not that hard, even if you've been through unpleasant experiences. Did you think about Africa, having thought about it, going back, or even visit? Or what was your feeling about Africa after all those years living abroad?
Yeah, so one of the things that I really find, yeah, kind of like bad, not bad, I wish I had done more. I did not have much link to Africa because both my parents were here. I had created new environment with other Rwandan friends, so I had like my Rwandan fix culture was there, but it was like in the back of my mind. So when I went to live with myself, like I said, I was full-fledged adult. I started also making my own money, and then from 18, I started to go on vacation. Like those small vacation when you go for like a week, you spend a lot of money getting drunk, because that's what you think vacations are made for. So I was doing those like a few years, and then I realized, like, wait a second. So why I keep traveling to this? I went like to Spain, to Germany, basically all these European countries. But why don't I go to Rwanda? And then I started thinking about it, and I started to propose those questions to my friends, and everyone was like, "Yeah, we should go, we should go." And so we were like all planning to go, and it's like, okay, we started with like 10 people, and like 6 weeks before we had to go, everyone could not make it, did not have enough money, they had to do re-exams. And then I had one friend left over who really, she was like ready to go with me. She was also random. And then at the last minute, she also got like some issues, financial issues with her education, grant thing that she was supposed to get, come through. So she was broke, did not have money. So at age 21, I was like, that's the first time I really wanted to go, but I had no one to go with. I did not know anyone back home, like, because I was,
Let me stop you
now.
right there for 1 second. Sorry to interrupt, because again, I experienced the same thing. I was
Mm,
planning to visit different countries in Africa with friends. At the last moment, everybody canceled. But I would like to have your personal feelings and thoughts about this. How come you talk about it with friends? So I guess you're grown up, so you talk about it a long time in advance to be sure to have enough resources to prepare your flight. And how come all of a sudden at the last moment people everybody cancel? Do you have any thoughts or explanation about this? I really would like to know your personal thoughts.
Well, yeah, well, my like I say, back then I didn't really understand it, but now I understand it. It's just that it was not of a high enough priority, because most of my friends, like I said, the ones who were, we were all the same. None of us were rich, but we could get a job at the supermarket, delivering papers, work at a restaurant. We could, we could get the money, but it was not a burning desire to go. So maybe some people got a job and then spend the money on clothes, or back in the day, car was something very fancy to have. Might have spent it on a car. Others might have spent it on schooling because they did not get government grants. Um, or and some of them, they just did not want to work an extra job to pay for the ticket. So I right now I later I realized, well, it did not happen because for most of us it was not of a high priority yet at that age. And the finances was a big deal. Like, since for me, I was working from a young age, and I'm financially responsible. So I worked extra hours, and I was good with saving money. So that's what I did. I saved money and I worked extra hours so that I could buy the ticket and have something to spend. But not everyone did that. So when you don't have it as a high priority and you don't have the right finances, then it doesn't happen.
Ah, thank you. You said the word music to my ears, high priority. It was not a priority.
No.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's blame the youth because they were young and dumb.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. But yes, priority, guys. Europe is not your all country. Europe wasn't born for us. So yes, we have another comment from, let me see, from Ebony. It was not a high priority because of the false perception even we as African have to the continent. What do you think about this?
Well, I mean, it's a bit general because I do not know the real reason why it was not a high priority. Like I said, I named a couple of reasons. Like I said, at 21, buying a ticket of like 600 to 800 euros, or buying a car looks pretty enticing as well. Or, and don't forget also that we're talking about Rwanda. So some of our parents don't have a good relationship with Rwanda anymore. Some of them are still traumatized. So they did not talk very nicely about Rwanda. It's like for them a place they would never go back. So I can imagine that the kids they cannot come home and say like, "Oh, mom, you know what? I just bought a ticket to Rwanda," and the mom go like, "Oh, good for you." No, so there's quite some issues, and I don't know if I don't know what their real reason is. The only thing I can conclude is that it was not of a high priority for them to make it happen, and maybe it was just also not a big motive. Maybe they were just also not motivated enough. The reasons we should just ask. I think those are kind of like personal, and I'm talking about specifically going back to Rwanda. It's
Sure.
kind of
Yeah,
complex.
I understand. There are specific cases in my opinion and in my personal experience. I know for a fact that in my entourage, in my the company that I used to keep, it was not a priority because of the perception, the cliche, the stereotype people have about
Mm.
people. That's for sure. Oh yes. I can. We can spend all the entire night talking about it. But anyway, okay, interesting. So um, now finally you decided to go anyway without them, or you postpone your trip. What happened next?
Yeah. So what happened next was interesting. So my mom was hearing what I was doing, and my mom back then was doing some kind of like international work for different African countries, where she would go and set up microcredit funds. So basically, help like yeah, small African tailors, for example, with funds to start their business. And she was like in Mali, in West Africa, and in Tanzania, and then because I was talking about it so much, and it was like, okay, so maybe she could like twist her work around that she could like join me, because I wanted to go in my case, but I really had no one to go with, and I did not know any of my family there. But since my mom said like, okay, I can find a way to come and join you, And then I was like, okay, let's do that. So what happened is I booked my ticket, and then my mom came to join me like 2 days later after I had landed. But it was because of her that I went. If my mom was not available to go to me with me in Rwanda, I would have probably postponed it as well and say like, okay, yeah, like next year.
So, and how was it when you finally? I know it was vacations, but still, after all these years living abroad in Europe and then back to Rwanda, your home, how was it? What was your reaction? How did you feel?
Yeah, so yeah, this was much more different, like I said, because I was an adult now. I could remember a lot of things. So it was, yeah, overwhelmingly like nice, I would say, mostly because of the weather, and mostly also because I grew up not knowing any big Rwandan community. Like Belgium, there is in the Netherlands, there's very little Rwandan community. Anytime when you see a Rwandan, it's like a surprise. It's like, oh my God, you are Rwandan! I cannot believe. You almost want to immediately start talking to that person. So when I went to Rwanda, and it was for the first time, I was part of the majority. I was in a black country now. I could just go and order a Fanta in my native language, something that I've never done in all of my life, basically. It was just like amazing, and just some small stuff. Like I said, when I came to the Netherlands, there were many things were off, like culture-wise, language, music, and here it was the opposite. When we went to a bar, for example, all the bars had good music. There was no, I did not have to check which DJ is playing, what kind of music, rock, trance or whatever. It was always good music. Also at the restaurant, at least half of the food on any restaurant, I liked it already. And like I said, it was always sunny. And then came also another concept of family. I did not grow up with a lot of my own family, so it was another added like nice thing to know that you came somewhere and there was like a whole extended family of yours that was linked to you somehow. So it was really nice. Yeah.
Okay, let's fast forward, and you finally you had a good time back in the country, visiting, revisiting, rediscovering, and then let's fast forward. What was the motivation? What was the trigger to come back for good in Rwanda?
So yeah, and indeed you have to fast forward a few years, because after that I went back and I studied more, I worked more, and then I finished my all of my education. Um, and then I had finished my bachelor's, and I was like, I don't, shall I do a master's? Yes or no? Because I was like really not feeling school that much. And I said, like, you know what, I've made it so far. Let me just do a master. But I put one thing into it. Okay, I will do a master only if I can go to Rwanda to do like an internship, because ever since I came back to Rwanda the first time, I had not had an opportunity to go back. So now I thought like I'll do a master and still fly under the student radar and go and study and work and do so that I can have like I can enjoy it. And once I went there to do my master's internship, I stayed there for up to like 9 months. That was to me the final trigger that really taught me that, hey, after those 9 months, I really felt like I could stay longer. In those 9 months, I saw a lot of business opportunities. In those 9 months, I get to travel around the country and see parts of the country that did not see before, and it was just eye opening. And in those 9 months, I got to meet a lot of family members and all of those things. So that was trigger number one. Trigger number two was once I came back after that internship, I realized I know now the European system. I've seen it. Have enough qualifications. I know the language. I'm fluent. I have enough tools to succeed in the Netherlands. It will not be. I mean, I won't say it will not be a challenge, but it's more boring, I would say. And like I said, I like more adventurous stuff. So I saw like staying in Holland was the safe and easy option, but also the less fulfilling one, and also the more boring one. And going to Rwanda was more fulfilling, but also more exciting and more risky, because I did not have any roots, any strong roots anymore there, because I grew up elsewhere and I had to start from scratch, making my own circle. But it was also the most fulfilling one, because I saw so many business opportunities there that I just thought that, Yeah, basically my life here in Rwanda will be of more meaning than in the Netherlands.
You are quite a character with a strong and very positive state of mind, and I really like it. But you know what? Let me be the devil advocate. But you had possibility because now you know the tricks in Europe, especially in the Netherlands. You speak the language, you have the qualification. Why wasting your time in Africa? Starting from the scratch again. I mean, going back again to this country. To we mean Africa. Come on, Africa is poor. Africa, we know people in Africa. All the cliches, you know. Let me show a book, the book again. Brainwashed, all these
Yeah.
cliches. I'm quite sure you heard all about all these cliches about Africans. Are you sure you that was a wise decision to go back? I'm quite sure you did you meet people who told you those kind of comments? Theo, are you sure you want to go back? I mean,
Yeah.
Africa.
Yeah, so there were, but I guess one of the not big trigger, but one of the small triggers that triggered me was that I realized there was also just a big misconception of Africa and of Rwanda in specific, and most of just to start close from home. Majority of the people who told me about Rwanda were my parents and my extended of family members, my parents, uncles, and people who, and they themselves have not been back to Rwanda for many years anymore. But they were still telling me about this Africa of 20 years ago, which was not now. And then there was like the media, of course, which was spewing all these kind of like lies and infactual things. But you do not know if they say Africa is dangerous, if you have not lived in Africa, who are you to challenge that? It's not like now where you can see how life is on TikTok or whatever. So it was when I got there, I realized that people were talking so harshly about Rwanda, and it did not match with what I was seeing, what I was like realizing, what I saw with my own eyes. So yeah, I'm like, no, something is off. Something is off here, and like I said, I saw it with my own eyes. And people say Africa is dangerous. I was fine in Rwanda. So Africa is poor, but I saw a lot of rich people driving in Kigali. They say, yeah, well, there are like better jobs here in Europe. But I'm still like, yeah, well, you can become a business owner and own multiple franchise in Africa, because like back then I was I was going by the quote, they don't even have a McDonald's here. So imagine if you open the first McDonald's here, you'll be rich. That's how I was just looking at the other side of the story and realizing the story that I was told about Africa, about Rwanda, it was not complete. So that's why I went there to kind of like live it by myself. And at least if they are right, I wanted to be like, okay, yeah, well, they are right. I lived there, and then it was indeed very poor, very dangerous, or very ugly. But so that's the reason why I went there, because the image was not really the same as what I was told.
Keyword. Thank you very much for this. Keyword, guys, the lack of information. You need to get the complete story to get there, to make your own mind. Very interesting. So that's the reason why. Let me show the book again. And I advise you guys to read it. Brainwashed, Challenging the Myth of the Black Inferiority. I put the link in the description box below. And again, Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And to the third book, Blueprint for Black Power by Amos and Wilson. And I strongly advise you guys to buy those three books. You need to feed your mind, read books. And speaking of book, there is this comment from Abraham who said, I'd like to share with you this excellent book from one of African great writer and researcher from Kenya, Dr. John ACB. He died this year. Rest in peace. His last book, Africa's Stolen Wealth. How do we get it back? Oh, thank you for sharing this, Abraham. You know what? Before we go, oh, shoot, I need to. Anyway, I'll keep that in mind. A very interesting, doctor. You know what? Let me uh, give me 1 minute. That's the thing with the direct show, with live show. Excellent. Give me 1 second to write it down because it is very interesting. Thank you, my dear Abraham. John ACB. I got you. Thank you. So I will check it out for sure. I will buy this book for sure. I will read the book for sure, and I may do a video about it for sure. Thank you, my dear Brand. Guys, if you want to have a conversation with our friend live, don't hesitate. I just put the link. Let me put it again. Turn on your camera. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. We are Africans talking with each other. No need to be don't need to be shy. It's fine. Our guest is very friendly. You saw that already. Um, and let me show again his website, his a YouTube channel that I found very interesting. Let me share again because I got to tell you, I really appreciate your work. I really like it. So this is the channel called, in one word, right here. Theo is back. So guys, go ahead, or you can even copy this link. Let me do it for you. I'll put that in the chat right now. So guys, do not hesitate. Visit this channel. This is the journey of Theo back to Africa, back to Rwanda, back to the motherland, and he shares his experience, what he did, what he does, what he planned to do. It's very interesting. So, guys, I really advise you to visit his YouTube channel. Very informative. I'm very pleased to see sons and daughters of Africa going back to the motherland. The guy who doesn't even live there talking, but I plan to go. Promise. I already have a house. Do you know I have a house there in Kigali?
No, actually, I don't know. Are you Rwandan, by the way,
I'm not
of
even
heritage?
Rwandan. I'm Caribbean. I'm from
From which
Guadeloupe, French Caribbean.
Guadeloupe?
Yep,
Ah, okay. Which part have you bought the land then?
in Nyaotarma.
Ah, okay. That's where I used to live as well. Nice neighborhood.
Oh yes, indeed, very nice. So be prepared. I will come and pay you a visit very, very soon. Probably January, February, March, the least. It depends on the global situation, of course. But I'll pay you a visit. I'll knock your door, and we're gonna have some fun, guys.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, guys, let me put again the link in case you want to uh, have a conversation with our guest. Don't be shy. Let me put it again right here. So don't be shy. Come on, guys. Let's exchange. So while the first person comes, and I would like to ask you some kind of question. Was it hard for you because you, even if you were a native Rwandan, but you left the country for so long, and now you decided to come back? So you have to somehow relearn again everything because you were a kid when you left the country. Everything has changed: the mentality, the state of mind, the country, the people. So you had to somehow to relearn everything, or it was like a glove. Everything were cool. So could you explain?
Yeah, no, good question. No, yeah, there was a lot of things I had to relearn. Like I said, even though I could speak the language, I had a very heavy accent, and people could also just see by the clothing that I was wearing that I was not from there. And of course, there are just some customs, things that people do in Rwanda that I don't like to do. Like I said, if you're making like certain procedures, just it's just like a world of different. So I had to like readjust. Things move on a much slower pace. There's like a scorching heat, and things like it's dark here around 6:30, and that's kind of when life also kind of slows down. And the infrastructure is of course different. You don't have like night trains. Back then there was not even high speed internet everywhere, so you could not. There was like a whole adjustment that you kind of had to deal with. But at the same time, that's also maybe where the opportunities lay a bit. Every problem that you kind of encountered, if you can find the solution. Like I said, in my case, there was not enough information about current Rwanda, so that's how I kind of started my YouTube channel, by just making videos of showing Rwanda, of me doing just random things, so that people can at least see how Rwanda is from today, not from 20 years ago. But slowly and slowly by slowly, you get used to it, and then you make it.
Let's continue on this path. because I think it's really important to not to fantasize about Africa. Let's face it. I'm quite sure. Anyway, I really love this continent because full of marvels, full of beautiful things. But let's not fantasize. There are reality that we need to be aware of. So for those people who, for instance, they don't have the same experience that you have. They never lived there, or they went just like me. I never lived in Africa, for instance. So, what do I have to expect when I finally decided to make the move forward and move there? What should I be aware of? What would be a couple of tricks and tips that you may give us, people like us who never lived there? Because there are some
Yeah.
realities that we may not aware of.
Yeah, that's true. So the first one I would say you should be willing and actively train your mind to have like an open mindset about everything, because believe it or not, if you've been living in a certain place for a long time, there's just some things that you think that that's how it's supposed to be. For example, if you go to meet someone, you just say like, we're going to meet at 2, and then you just believe here at 2 you're supposed to be there. If that person doesn't show up at 2 but it shows up at 3, you might be pissed off. But there is like a different culture here. Like if you say we're gonna meet at 2, people usually generally leave their house at 2, and some even start preparing themselves at 2. So what you get is that when it's like among local people is that you both come a bit late. So you might come at 2 or 3 even, which is okay here. But you, with your mindset, you were like, no, you might be pissed off. I'm like, what is this? Are you not are you taking me for granted? But no, that's just you need to have like an open mindset and realizing that's how things go here. And there's a ton of reasons why those things happen. But just to give you an example, like having an open mindset to things not going as the way you used to them going. And also the second one, I would say this is a bit more of a deeper one. You need to learn how to decolonize your mindset, I say, because if
Wait,
you've
wait, wait,
lived
wait,
in
wait,
a country,
wait. Woo! I love this. I love this. Say it again.
you have to decolonize your mindset.
Oh, brother, brother, brother. The more you speak, the more I love you. Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
like it. Go ahead.
So
Continue. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
no worries. No, you have to understand that if you have lived in a country where used to be countries of colonizers, basically, they have built a system, and they have and you have profited also from the system. You have been taught in that system, so inadvertently you are also thinking like a colonizer. Actually, if you are living in that country, and when you come to this Africa, to the to the continent, learning how to decolonize your mindset is just learning that everything that you have been taught was taught through this colonizer lens, because that's where the whole world is being brought up. You have to kind of press like a reset on some stuff, so therefore things as like beauty, there's some things that you find beautiful, but that's because you've been brought up in that world and you think it's beautiful. When you come here, you have to rechange your mind uh, into seeing what is again beauty from African perspective. When it comes to certain things as what is like seen here as, let's say, of high status. For example, in Rwanda, someone who's older is automatically of higher status. They get treated better, they get preferential treatment, and they're treated nicer. So it's not about your qualification. So you can never find someone who's like kicking an old man or something. That's really like taboo, almost undone. That's just something you don't do. But that's something that you have to like decolonize your mindset, not to think of people and judge them by their status or whatever, or their money, or something. Just know that it's different around here, and many of those small things that you just have to keep in mind, like everything that you are, the way you think, know that it is somehow linked to the colonizers country that you come from. And it's a long process. I myself, I'm also still going through those, where I find myself kind of like rethinking everything, the way I do, the way I react, the way I talk, to match it to the to the place that I'm in right now, basically.
Let's say I'm packing my stuff tomorrow and I move to Africa, especially to Rwanda. What do I have to, especially me, because I never lived there, what do I have to expect? How do What should I, if I have two or three things that I need to change right now, right away, to be sure that I have the best integration possible, what would it be?
Um, like the first thing that I would say that you need to change is you need to because you said to get the best experience. Okay, the first one that I would say is you need to change your your mindset of, for example, what it is that is called like rich, being rich. Most of the time, when you come to Rwanda tomorrow, right away, you are considered rich, and you might not agree with that because, like, no, man, I'm just a normal guy. Treat me like a normal guy. But no, when you come here, you are rich, and people and you might ask what determines when I'm rich or not. It's, let's say, if you just come here, you get judged by all Rwandans. I'm sure like 80% of the Rwandans here will say like, okay, no, you are rich. And if you are rich, you will need to learn also to have like a rich mindset. So therefore, for example, if you go somewhere and you take a taxi cab and the ride is normally $10, but you get into the taxi cab, the guy looks at you, says like it's going to be $12. Um,
Typical.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you might think like, oh, why are you ripping me off? You think just because I'm a foreigner, or you think because I look rich, you have to. But that's again a poor mindset because you come there, the difference between $10 and $12 is not gonna break the bank with you. You understand? So you coming there and just realizing like, listen, I have some wealth. It can be monetary, but it can also be just mindset because you thinking like that. You have like a rich mindset of thinking the world is abundant. I'm coming here to prosper the continent. So sometimes realizing that yes, sometimes when you are rich, you tax more, but you can also afford more, and also know that when you are rich, as you know, the more you give, the more you return. So you get to the cab, and then you pay the $12. You know what? You're making that the driver very happy because he's now gonna go home, talk about how this nice guy who paid him above normal rates, you know, how nice he was. How he was asking me a question. We were talking about it was first time in Africa. Now this driver is home in a better feeling, and next time when he sees you, he's gonna like, that's a good man. That's the guy I drove last time. We had like a pleasant encounter with. Um, so that's the first thing that I would like to say. But having that rich mindset, many people just are always afraid of that because they always think like I'm gonna get ripped off. But being ripped off is a system that is of that is more common in the colonizers country because they are like systems that are built that will basically just, yeah, in Canada, probably, you can subscribe to something and they can still get your money from your bank account, whether you like it or not, because you signed up for a long time ago. That's not what's here in Rwanda. You don't get ripped off like that, and not for at least not for fun, not for like enriching the super rich people. If someone rips you off here, they're probably very, 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 very poor than you, and they're gonna steal very little money from you. So apart from me being mentally like, I got ripped off, it's a bad thing. You are not losing much. And like I said, in a cab ride, you might lose three, maybe $5. You might pay $3 or $5 more than an average Rwandan. But it's just that mental mindset of being free. That hey, if I pay more, I can afford more because I am rich in mindset. I am rich in wallet than the average. So that's one thing I would say to when you come to Rwanda and you want to live in the wealthy mindset of yourself. That hey, I can afford it. Of course, there are limits to everything, but in the general case, if you coming from Canada to Rwanda, that's one thing I would say you definitely will help you to have a more pleasant experience to get accumulated. Because sometimes here in Rwanda, people, what you also will realize, the level of connection to people is also really fairly honest. So if you meet someone, you can just ask them, like, hey, can you help me? I'm a foreigner. I just came here. This is my first week in Rwanda. I don't know what this cab ride costs. Can you help me? And I can tell you, 9 out of 10 times, people, they will be honest with you. They'll be say like, listen, this cab ride is it's like between $10 and $15, but I will charge you $13 or something like that. And then if you ask him like, can I give you 10? He'll probably say yes, no problem. But people are generally more honest than that I've seen in Europe, in my opinion.
Okay, it's very interesting. Thank you for this information. I have the feeling it's me because I have the feeling sometimes people living outside of Africa, black people living outside of Africa, they there is this cliche thinking that you don't need a lot of money to sustain a different life in Africa. Basically, come with your hands in your pockets and you'll be fine. I'd like to kill the stereotypes one for all. Could you? Okay, I understand that the cost of life may be cheaper in Rwanda than the United States or Canada or everywhere else, but life is not free. You still have to pay for your water. You have to pay. You still have to pay for your food or whatsoever for any kind of accommodation. What would be your message to these people thinking that just because you move to Africa, it's fine, you don't need that much money?
Uh, well, yeah, the answer to that is always twofold. You know, yes, you don't need that much money, but yes, you also need money. It all depends on your level of bougie. How bougie do you want to live here? Yeah, do you want to always take a cab to go to the supermarket and get back? Do you want to be chauffeured everywhere you want to go, or can you walk? Do you want to get the same product that you're used to in Canada, the same brand, or can you also take a local brand that's from here? Do you always have to have, I don't know, mayonnaise on your fries, or can you just try this new local ketchup that's like not the ones that you're used to? So herein one thing that you're going to realize when you come here, you have all walks of lives that are living on different budgets, like money that you go to and spend in one night to have a good time with a friend. That's someone's full month salary. Now, you both are still walking on the same earth, you're still walking next to each other. So yes, you do need some money. How much? That really depends on the kind of lifestyle you want to maintain. If you're coming here to Rwanda and you want to maintain your Toronto or your Canada lifestyle, I don't know if you're in Toronto, but it's it's up to you. You can. It does come to on a premium. But if you come here and say like, hey, I just want to live humbly, I want to live like how majority of the people live here, you can as well. But just don't be fancy about the lighting in your room, or about the kind of like streets view that you have. So it's all possible. It really depends on how you live there. I would say in Rwanda there's like no minimum money that you need. That's one of the good things, as long as you're willing to humble yourself and live to that point. Whereas in the Western world, you do need a certain minimum amount of money, otherwise you literally get kicked off the out of your house. You land on the streets or somewhere.
Um, I have another question. I can see, guys, don't hesitate. I put the link in the chat room. So if you want to have this conversation with our guests, don't forget, click the link, turn on your camera. Like I said, don't be shy. There is no need to hide yourself. We are Africans talking to each other, so let's not be shy. Click the link and have a conversation with our guest. So if you have any question regarding how to move to Africa, especially to Rwanda, if you're interested in it, please do not hesitate. I'd like to ask you, Ebony, who said, Ebony, I'm going to make fun of you right now. I don't want to show my face. Why? You ugly? What's wrong, Ebony? You're not ugly. You're African like us. Don't be afraid. It's fine. But that's the rule, because if I give an exception to you, I'm gonna have to give an exception to everyone, and I do not want that. That's the rule in this house. We have to show our faces because we are Africans talking to Africans. But that's fine. I have this question for you, Theo. As a foreigner, even if I consider myself as an African, my ancestors are African, so I'm African. I wasn't born in Africa, but like Kwame Nkrumah says, I'm not African because I was born in Africa. Africa was born in me. My DNA is African. My cultural heritage is African. My background is African. Makes me an African. But yet, I never lived there. So I understand if I go to Rwanda tomorrow, Rwanda won't considers me as a Rwandan. So, what would be the best attitude to have in order to have the best interactions? Because of course, let's talk about it. I experienced the famous Rwandan stare. Oh Lord, when you're not accustomed, when you're not used to it, it can be challenging. I'm gonna tell you straight up. I have to tell you. But I understood, because I've been told, I understood that there is nothing wrong because they can tell you're not from here.
Mm-hmm.
Your face. So they could you. I don't want to talk too much because I would like you to explain. First of all, what's the Rwandan stare? How would you? What would be the best reaction to do? How to deal with it? Because it could be challenging when you're not accustomed to it. What would you suggest?
Yes, it is challenging, but it's mostly, like I said, challenging for foreigners who are coming to Rwanda, indeed. Um, but yeah, what can you do about it? It is what it is. To explain to people who do not know, the Rwandan states, when you come to Rwanda, a lot of Rwandans like to just stare at you blankly, just because you look different from from what they're used to. I would say most of them, like 99%, is just pure curiosity of like, what are you, where are you from, and they can see that, okay, what kind of clothes are you wearing, and also know that in Rwanda there's like still like a hierarchy system, so they want to like gauge in how much respect they should give you. You know, you might be the son of a prime minister, you know, but you might be also a cleaner from somewhere. But foreigners get this pass where they just curious about you and they will stare at you for a very long time. And like I said, this is one of those things. Someone in Rwanda told me this, like, yeah, what's wrong with staring? Like, because you have something to give, which is like novelty, which is like uniqueness. You would come here, people would see like, you don't look like fully Rwandan. You know, they're like, so for them, it's like a treat to get to see someone totally new, because most of them probably will never leave their country. So to get to see someone, you know, to have the countries come to them, it's very curious. So for them, they don't feel like they're doing anything wrong. And honestly, it's not doing anything wrong. It's just that I don't know why, for some reason, when someone stares us at for a very long time, our minds just start to think about our own insecurities or something, and makes us feel weird. But yeah, that's about it, I would say.
You have this question from a brand. Let me show it to you. Who said, "Theo, I'm living in Toronto. So, Abran, as soon as we can, one day we're gonna have to meet each other. I'm not in Toronto. I'm in Montreal, but still, we can one day find a way to meet each other." He said, "From West Africa, where are there great opportunity in Rwanda? Would you
Yeah,
suggest?"
the answer is simply yes. That's my main reason why I also came to Rwanda, because of the many opportunities that are still laying here. So Rwanda is like a really like a virgin country. There's so much things to be done, and it is already moving at a very high pace. Um, so there are many opportunities. If you ask me where, there are tons in any sector. Just you pick one that you like or that you're good in, and you put in the work, you definitely succeed, because it is already on the right track.
Do you advise to go there and look for a job, or to go there and create your own job?
No, honestly, creating your own job is going to be easier than looking for a job. I say this because most of people who are coming from the West have very good jobs, very high paying jobs, very well taken care of jobs, and those we don't have here. So you might be getting like 2,000 or to 5,000, you know, a month, and here you might be getting 1,000. You know, like, huh? And the hours might be longer. Um, but yes, of course, it is adjusted for living environment and everything. So getting making your own job is what's probably going to be most fulfilling, but it's going to be the most work, because if you've never been an entrepreneur, first of all, there's like a learning curve you have to learn to deal with, you know, working for yourself, and you know, bringing your service or product to the market. But it is the most fulfilling one, because you are literally just helping other people as well with your job.
Um, a quick question before we have a first panelist in the house. Um, um, Speaking of entrepreneurship, is it complicated, difficult, a lot of paperwork, especially when you're a foreigner and you decided to create your own company and hire people? Is it complicated with all this paperwork? How could you describe it?
No, it's actually fairly easy. The government has really made it easy. You can register a business within 24 hours, whether you're a foreigner or a local person. And it actually becomes easier when you have a job, when you have like a company with Rwandan employees, because it's easier to get certain like long-term visas and stuff like that. No, it's fairly there. Like the system is going more and more online. It's mostly English. They are now translating it also to French. So it's really, I think it has also been put as number 2 as the easiest place to do business in Africa, right after Mauritius, I believe. So from what I'm hearing from the feedback that I'm getting from many people online is that they also, Rwanda is really a great place to start a business.
Interesting. Thank you very much. We are going to have our first panelist. Just wait a minute. I got lost in translation. Give me 1 second. We are getting our first panelist just after this. Welcome back to the African Chronicles. We're still live. We are guest. Theo is back. And this is our first panelist, Iboni Ripet. Welcome.
Sorry, there's a bit of a lag. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, there's a bit of a lag.
And now you mute yourself so we cannot hear you. You're still muted. I cannot hear you. You're still muted.
You have muted, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, great. Hi. Thank you so much, Theo, and African Chronicles. Can you hear me now? There's a lag, isn't there? Okay, great. Hi. Thank you so much, Theo, and African Chronicles. Okay, sorry. There's a lag, isn't there? Okay, great. Hi. I'm so sorry. I'm hearing myself, and I'm trying to mute myself here as well.
Wait, if you have anything between if you have the YouTube open, turn it off.
I guess if you can hear me without any lag, I had a question about because my family and I are looking to relocate to Rwanda, and we're particularly interested or concerned about being integrated as, I guess, foreigners. And my question is, are we or would we possibly be considered foreigners, even though we are part of the African diaspora, but will we be treated as foreigners or considered repats or part of the diasporans? Because I know even Rwandians looking to come back to Rwanda, I thought was part of the diaspora. So what would we be considered or viewed in similar light? Is my question, as a diasporan or as a foreigner, because a lot of us are returning to pretty much find our own home and own space on the motherland. And Rwanda, I think, is one of the best places to start, especially in East Africa. So I was curious to know, Theo, if you had any insight on that. Would my family and I and similar diasporans or those from the West looking to relocate to the motherland be considered part of the diaspora of Rwanda or foreigners? And what are the benefits or around that?
All right, yeah. So it's a good question. It's something that I've been getting more and more often. So yeah, just to give you a simple answer, no, you'll probably be considered as a foreigner for one simple reason. There's at this point not much distinction between a foreigner, a diaspora, or yeah, exactly. So there's not much distinction. So you don't get any preferential treatment or any ease of something. The only difference that there might be is that if you're like a diaspora and you have like Rwandan heritage, you might get a Rwandan ID card, which technically makes you a Rwandan citizen and then comes with all the citizenship advantages. But that's the only advantage. Any other person who does not have a Rwandan heritage is treated as a foreigner. You might be a repat, you might be a returning African American. But in terms of the system, the way it's built up, there is no specific like advantage from you or another white person coming from the same country as you, just for the simple fact that it is still new. This whole repat things is still new. We don't have enough people, and I think we are getting more and more, specifically African Americans coming here, and they are meeting other African Americans. And then when the group grows, that's when you can go apply for some kind of like special treatment at the government. If you say like, hey, we have a certain group of African Americans, they represent a wealth of knowledge and access to finance. If you can make it easy for them to come to the country or get citizenship or whatever, then you might get something. But at this point, it's still fairly new. I would say if you come to Rwanda, I would definitely advise you to do something like that, to kind of put like a group of repads, and then with that group you can have power to make some real like governmental change.
Thank you for that. I know there's still a bit of a lag, but I know there was recently a part of the government. They had a meeting with local repats who are part of the West or from African Americans. The government did meet with them to try and see what needs we may have coming in to Rwanda, because a lot of us are not looking to necessarily take jobs, but create jobs, create opportunity, and create a home base going forward for our generation. But I guess part of the question is, how well will we integrate, as well as learning the language locally, learning the culture as well as a concern. And I do have a question around that as well. A lot of concerns also, part of what I had mentioned earlier about the perception people have about Africa. There is still a perception about Rwanda's history, and how that if the current president or the current government is not in place, what that would look like going forward. Do you have any insight on that, whether the mindset locally has changed amongst the youth like yourself, whose parents may have lived through that, experienced that hurt and pain and death and that genocide? I mean, does that translate, or is that influential to the youth of Rwanda, and to ensure that something like that doesn't happen again in the country? Can you speak to any insight on that?
1 second. Okay, yes. Yes, definitely. So one thing that Rwanda has, like, I hate to call it, but like a unique selling point, is that it has gone through one of the worst tragedies in human history, basically, and they have bounced back. And this bouncing back did not happen by accident. It's not like, well, okay, it's bad, and we just happen to now coincide and work together and build this awesome country together. So there's a real strategy behind. There's like a real wealth of knowledge that has been created. There's some real skills that have been developed in order to get this thing coming through. And honestly, I think in the future, Rwanda is going to be exporting this knowledge on the way they did it, because it's simply phenomenal. It's like unseen, basically, in the world. And yeah, if you're asking whether the youth has taken it up, whether this will not happen, no one knows. Of course, no one knows that tomorrow not another war will happen or whatever. But all I can say is that, what they say, like, success leaves clues, is that from where Rwanda came from to where they are right now, it's not by accident. There's something they've done which is strategic, which is tangible, which is systematic, for it not to happen, and for it to actually get the opposite effect of the country coming back together and growing. So, and these are the things that you see, at least for myself, let me speak for myself, these are the things that I saw when I moved back to Rwanda. If someone had told me about this when I was still there, I could not really fully understand. You really have to be on the ground to understand that, hey, this place, not even 30 years ago, people like fighting, almost to killing each other, and now look at this. Everyone you talk to in the street, you ask them, hey, I have a job for you to help the country. Will you join me? They will say yes automatically. So there is some big tangible changes that have been put in works in Rwanda, and I think we people from the West are now just seeing the results of it. People are now just seeing that, oh, look how Rwanda is doing this. But these things have been going on for 37 years. It's just that back then, there is like planting a tree, right? You don't celebrate it after like 1 month. Hey, I planted a tree, and it takes a very long time. But now that it's coming out, I can tell you it's just starting. This has all to do with all the work that the government, that the Rwandan people have put into it for the past 7 years, consistently, non-stop. It has not stopped. They have not had one break. They've not had 1 year when they say like, listen, this year we're not going to work on all of a sudden we're going to take a break and just enjoy our lives. No, it's something that's still being worked on. It is just now that people are seeing the positive sides of it.
Before we go further, I need to send you a reminder, people. Let's check it out. You really thought you would get away with it, guys? Yeah, don't forget to like this video, to subscribe, or everybody's going to think that you're a hater, and you're not a hater, are you? And share this video. And I can tell, Ebony, you have a beautiful smile. So you wanted to hide that from us, really, Ebony? You wanted to hide that beautiful smile from us? No, no, no. You have to share it. All right, guys, let's continue our conversation with our guest. Theo is back, and I strongly advise you to visit his channel. Theo is back in one word, and we are. Hold on, let me check if I can see some more comments. Nothing really special right here. I had this question from Nikki, who said, "How much is the population in Rwanda?" It's around 10 million people, I guess, more or less.
Mm-hmm. No, it's 12. It's 12 point something, almost 13 even.
Almost 13. Almost 13. A little bit more than Belgium, right? Or more or less the same.
More or less, yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's continue this conversation. Ebony, if you have another question, please do not hesitate. Let's go ahead.
I do have one more question.
Sure.
Theo, do you ever plan to go back to Europe or anywhere else in the West? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Okay. Yeah. No, good question. So, people have asked me this question a lot, and I find it always funny because, I mean, like Ebony, you are calling from America, I think?
Yes, yeah. New York, yeah.
Yeah, so before I answer the question, let me just ask you the question. Like how do you know where you're gonna be in about 20 years? Do you gonna be in the States, or you're gonna be in Rwanda or in South Africa? Like how do you know? How do you come to the process of knowing where you're gonna be in 20s?
Well, I'm different because I know where I want to be in 20 years, as far as career-wise, as far as financial security-wise. So I know for sure, for me, for my family, it's not the United States. It's more than likely going to be Africa. But of course, everyone's journey is different.
Yeah.
So the question to you, so the question to you, okay, so do you have any idea if you think?
Oh, for me,
yeah, for you.
Yeah, for me, for me, honestly, I don't know. I don't know. That's like the good question, because I came here without an expiration date. I came here to set up my business, to finally follow my dream of having my own gym, and I'm still in the process, and I still have like a long way to go. So maybe after I've set up my business, it has been running, it has been uber successful, I might think of going to another country, and why not? But the big reason why I say I don't know is because I have the option to go back to Europe, from today. I have the option to maybe even go to Asia or America, but I have nothing really. Right now at this point that you're asking me in 2021, I have no reason to go there. Nothing is pulling me back, pulling me there. Everything's actually pulling me in Africa, here in Rwanda, where I'm at. Everything is going just phenomenal, I would say, and there's just more in the future than there is in the past here. So yeah, it's crazy. It's if you ask me now, I say I don't know, but you see how life goes, how life would treat me. But I have no reason to go to Europe if you're asking me now.
If I may add something, I will speak for my parents. My parents live in Rwanda for probably now 5 years, and they are retirees, so they're retired, so they living it up, and they have no intention to leave Rwanda whatsoever, or even Africa. And I always say, just to tease them, I say, Mom, Dad, will you come and visit me in Canada? I say, hell to the no. Hell no, I didn't lose anything in Canada. If you want to see me, you know where I live. I'm in Africa, to the motherland. So bring your little ass over here and let's have some fun. But no way, I'm not gonna move away from Africa nor Rwanda ever, ever, ever. So, and I never saw my parents so happy since the day they moved to Africa. I never seen them like this. Don't get me wrong, like we said earlier in the show, there are realities, difficulties everywhere, but still they feel safe, they're at home. And oh yes, let me break it down a couple of stuff. Rwanda is probably the safest country in Africa. The crime rate is so low, and the place is so clean. I never seen a country so clean. And when I see clean, and believe me, I like to be provocative. I searched for the dirt. I really did. I didn't find any. Everywhere in the country. Clean, 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 clean. And don't try to mess with this. Don't be like a 4-year old. I dropped the paper on the ground and I don't care. No, no, don't even try. Don't even think about it. So just to tell you how much this country achieve a lot of. I'm quite sure there are still a lot to do, but nevertheless, this country achieved a lot. So I think it's personally a good place. I might be biased, of course, because I already have a house there. Let's be fair, I might be biased, but still, if the place was that ugly, I don't think my parents would move there. So I guess that could be a metric. So, guys, don't hesitate. If you have more questions, let's do it. If not, I would not take too much time of our friend, my dear Ebony. Thank you again for being here. If you have any other question, please, please, please shoot. Guys, on the chat, if you don't have more questions for again. Well, I have one more before we go further. What would be a couple of advice you may give to our fellow African people living in Africa, seeking the West, because you've been living there for a long time. So, because I know a lot of brothers and sisters sees the West like, ooh, it's the Holy Grail, it's the golden, whatever it is. So, let's bring them back to reality, shall we? So, what would be your couple of advice regarding Europe?
To people in Africans in Europe who want to come to Africa, you mean, or?
I mean, African people living in Africa who seek to live in Europe. What would be
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Oh, no one has asked me this question in a long time. I always in the beginning, people were asking me this, like, I want to go to Europe. Can you help me? Can you do that? But I always tell them, like, listen, Europe is not it's not heaven. It's actually quite the opposite of it. You have to start from scratch. You'll be dealing with issues that you don't know that that those issues exist, like systematic racism, something like that. So I just tell them, like, listen, if you are not successful here, you probably also it's gonna be hard for you to be successful over there. Don't think that it's like grabbing money off the ground just because you are in Europe or somewhere like that. And then I tell them at the same time, like, yeah, if you are highly motivated and you are talented, it might be a good thing for you. If you are, because you might get into this circle of higher level achievers, but just know that ask yourself if it's worth it. Like the effort and time that will take you to leave this country and go to Europe or America and get used to the system. Like 5 years will be gone by, and what could you have done in those 5 years if you stayed here and applied yourself, basically? And after that, yeah, I just leave them to them, and then wish them luck with whatever choice they make.
I guess it's important to mention that, to stop fantasize about other countries. Like we said, the grass seems to be always greener somewhere else. So it's time to, to shake the trees and show the real truth. And what would be, if we have to, if you could give a couple of advice, the last advice for today, to those now who decided to go to Africa once for good, people like me, for instance, who never born there, what would you suggest to be as prepared as possible?
Sorry, you were breaking up. Can you repeat the last question?
Sorry, I was saying, what could you give us a couple of advice for people like me who was not born, who weren't born in Africa, who decided to move? What could be a couple of advice you could give to be sure that we are as prepared as possible?
Ah, yes. So
The straight up truth. Let's not
yeah,
fantasize.
no, the straight up truth is that you will never be prepared enough. So
Oh, interesting.
you have to be prepared to move when you are not fully ready. That's one thing I would say, because you can get into this deep hole of thinking, okay, I need to get this amount of money, I need to first finish this job, or let me just do this, and just prepare yourself for the basics, and know that there will come a time you have to take a jump before you are fully ready,
Mm,
because it's part of the adventure to get and adapt yourself. And if you come like if you yeah, that's one thing I would say. Just be prepared to do that. And certain things are like I told you, have an open mindset when you're coming here to to new ways of thinking, to decolonize your mindset from where you came from. Yeah, and the third is, I would say, yeah, have the courage to actually do it. People always think about coming to Africa, moving to Africa for many years. They put a to-do list, they talk about it with their friends, and da 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 da. Do it. I would rather you just move to Africa for a year and on a sabbatical or whatever, and then move back, than you talking about moving to Rwanda for the next 5 years of your life. Because once you do it, you gain so much more information, and you get so much more clarity on your questions that you have. Like, is it the right country for me? What would I do when I'm in there? It's gonna be safe for me. You just move there, and you will see all of those questions answered. So yeah, those three things I would say.
excellent. Emily, do you have one last question?
Not a question, but I just wanted to thank you, Shango and Theo, for hosting today's session live, especially for those who are interested in returning to the motherland for the first time, specifically Rwanda. My family and I look forward to visiting Rwanda for the first time next year. Theo, thank you for your videos, because I saw that your family had recently did some research around the plots, and you found an apartment recently, and we hope that transition for you and your family goes well. So keep doing
Yeah,
what
thank
you're
you.
doing, and we look forward to at least not only seeing what Rwanda has to offer, but probably even visiting your. I think you have plans to open up a gym or crowdfund that vision for yourself. So you certainly have a supporter in me, and I'm sure other diasporans and locals. So thank you for you both for coming out today to discuss. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you very much for the kind words. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear Ronnie, to join us. Stay with us for a little more, for a little longer. Thank you again, Theo, for being here. And oh yeah, by the way, you are about to open. Oh, you already opened a gym, right?
Yes, I opened the gym, but it's kind of like inside of another gym. So I'm kind of like crowdfunding to open my own facility,
Okay.
with the whole billboard. But yeah, but I've already opened this inside another gym, and we are working together. It's going fine for now, but hopefully next year we'll be able to raise enough money to make it happen.
Okay, so the next time I may, because I need to, to lose some weight, but don't tell, don't tell, don't tell. I need to lose some weight. Don't repeat that. Okay, let's stay between us, guys. It was a real pleasure to have you on board in this show. Let me refresh your memory with three books that I really advise you to read. First, Brainwashed by Tom Burrell, challenging the myth of the black inferiority. How Your brain has been controlled to make you believe that Africa is the last place on earth to visit. So I really encourage you to read this book, Brainwashed by Tom Burrell. The link is in the description box below. And the second book from Walter Rodney, excellent historian and Pan Africanist. I really advise you to read this book. How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Excellent book. How to Keep Africa Poor to Make It Simple. I put also the link in the description box below, and there are solutions to counter everything. And here it is. There it is. I really, really, really advise you to read this book. Blueprint for Black Power by Amos and Wilson. Excellent, excellent book. Guys, it was a pleasure to have you. Theo, it was a real, real, real pleasure to have you on board. Thank you again for this, for being here. Looking forward to see you face to face. And if you have one last word for the people who watching this show, what would it be?
One last word. I would say, like, I'm assuming they're all Africans, at least interested in Africa. I would say keep supporting Africa and come to Africa if you have never been to Africa, at least to put one footstep over there, and then yeah, take it from there.
Theo, thank you very much for your time. Now you know you're not a friend. You're now a family member, so you can come back to the show anytime you are pleased. All right. Thank you again for your time, Theo, and I see you next time, people. Thank you for watching the show. It was a real pleasure, and I see you next time. Good night.
Good night. Bye bye.